There's so many different ways that corporations are using podcasting. And I think the strategic part about it is not just doing random episodes.
Yes.
And being more strategic. Like, I'm going to do this mini series and it's going to be about recruiting.
One of the things that actually I think is unique is the fact that you can create these mini series of shows from the team for recruiting purposes, but you can place and embed these podcasts on literally the job ad. You could create these mini series and utilize YouTube and Google to optimize these mini series, which then again, we go back to attracting talent because talent is marketing. Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Your Authority, and I'm here with my co-host Danielle.
Hey everybody.
And we're going to talk about an important topic today all around podcasting campaigns, especially when it involves corporations. There's different ways that you can actually think about utilizing podcasts in a different way. And I think today we're going to talk a little bit about 3 different ways that we can leverage this. And one of them is more about the internal voices. I think that it's really important that when you're building a team culture, that you have these, the internal voices help build the culture of the corporation. But why not do it through podcasting? And actually, one of our clients does just this. They actually record their weekly show for their podcast that actually recruits salespeople for their company. And then they also have an internal podcast that literally blasts out content about what's going on and upcoming for the entire week or the month to keep the employees engaged in the content. So I think that's one of the unique things if people have been thinking about starting a podcast on the corporate front, like how can you get your team more involved? How can you actually build a culture where people, they're like excited to see like the internal voices share more about what's going on. So
yeah, and like using it as a marketing tool to recruit top talent. There's so many different ways that corporations are using podcasting. And I think the strategic part about it is not just doing random episodes.
Yes.
And being more strategic. Like, I'm going to do this mini series and it's going to be about recruiting.
Yes.
And it's going to attract the top tier talent because you're getting your culture across. Like, people want to work for companies that are innovative, exciting to work with.
Well, they show they care.
And they show that they care.
They have a mission on that side. When you were talking about mini series, one of the things that actually I think is unique is the fact that you can create these mini series of shows from the team for recruiting purposes, but you can place and embed these podcasts on literally the job ad, right? So you can go into LinkedIn, Indeed.com. There's different places where you can leverage a podcast from the voice of the team that literally cares about the mission that this corporation has.
And I love that. And there's also like opportunity to have like on the job ads for you to embed like, hey, listen to episode 1 of our podcast that is more about the company. So you can go into what the company is about on a podcast and then actually ask the people that are applying, like, what were their key takeaways? What did they love about that episode? What did they love about the core values of the company? And what did they learn about the company?
Yeah, I think it's important for them to ask these questions too. So as they're interviewing these people and they come in as candidates, they can get to know if they're really paying attention to the podcast in the same sense. So I think it's a good way to bring in podcasting when you're building team culture and not think about it as just a marketing tool for the company, but you can literally leverage it to bring in and recruit talent because they say talent is also marketing, right?
Absolutely.
Well, another thing that comes to mind on the essence of how you can leverage podcasts in a mini-series type effort for the corporations is more of like, I would say more of like leadership lessons, right? So you would have the individuals, like the CEO or the founders or the head execs or the managing partners come in and do mini-series on that side. I think when people think about podcasting, they think, well, I'm going to have a podcast and here's my first season, here's my second season, or here's my weekly show. But you don't have to even leverage it that way. You can create different mini-series underneath, even if it's like 4 to 6 episodes. And this is a great way to leverage it within the internal side of it. So why not have all of the leaders in the corporation come in and create this mini-series that maybe it's a prerequisite when we do get hired. You're not just going through this training series, you're going through these podcasts. You're learning more about each of the leaders and the executives and the founders and their mission and their values that come into play with that piece of it. So I think it's just a great way to build team culture, because when they're building corporations, I feel like sometimes that gets lost in translation. So
yeah, and what's really cool about it is like if like the corporations have multiple departments, so you can have a podcast per department as well. I can go deeper into what type, like different campaigns that you could have that make sense.
When you think about podcasts, obviously one of the main ways to promote a podcast is through micro content, shorts, reels, TikTok videos. But why not infuse the behind the scenes of the podcast, right? You've got the team members coming in, doing behind the scenes efforts, like showing like different things, like maybe they have innovative labs or events within the company. But you can literally turn that into a mini series of behind the scenes that has like the culture in action. And you could call the mini series like culture in action. Like you could literally create that experience of what it looks like in motion working as the employee in that side too.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Well, when we were talking a little bit about how you could literally utilize like a podcast or like a video episode in the recruitment process of the applications and resumes, on that side, I mean, you could really think about how you can turn it around and use that in your onboarding as well. So once that person is hooked, they feel called to that, they match those values. How can you also leverage these mini series of podcasts through your onboarding efforts? Because a lot of time people come through, they're like, hey, we're going to like, have you watched these videos? It's like training, onboarding. Why don't they make it more effective and more conversational? It's like the candidates have more of like a conversational feel where they feel like they're not being just taught and talked at, but they feel like they could be part of a conversation. So, I mean, it could be a unique way where an actual like onboarding session is actually two like, employees talking through a podcast like this that actually talks about their core values and things like that. Because I almost believe that it could stick really well if somebody's watching a podcast interview about like what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like giving stories about what the culture is like, talking about people have worked with the company for like 10 years, 15 years. Like there's something special about those employees that have stuck around and been with the company for that long. And to actually showcase that, your upper management actually cares about the team. Like care goes a long way, and just showing more of the core values and what the, conversations are like within the workplace is it's an ideal situation to show on podcasts. And when you talk about podcasts, you're not just talking about audio only, like you're talking about video as well.
Yeah.
So, but you could have both. Like you could have the audio podcast and then you could have the video podcast as well.
Well, you have people that consume content in different ways, video format. Like I love video, but there's moments where I might be like driving in my car and I'm not going to be just watching the video, but I'll be playing it. And there's plenty of people and clients that we work with that are like, even yesterday we had a conversation with a gentleman. He's like, I didn't even really think about audio. He's like, I watch all my video podcasts on YouTube. Like, but you think, well, audio started with all the platforms for audio podcasting. So I like the conversation you said about showing you care. So it's like ROI equals care on that side. And so when you're able to do that and infuse that, I feel like building a team culture with that side of it and having this more organic, authentic conversations with people, it helps the team culture grow. People get excited. They like have different conversations. They get to share out the content. Obviously, if you're doing the internal ones, it's a no. Don't share out the internal ones unless you're part of the company. But there's different ways that you can actually leverage the content. And I think like even companies can utilize YouTube just like we do with our clients, because it's obviously the largest search engine there, owned by Google on the video platform format. And so when you're able to share more of those messages, I think it's really unique. And that's how we got started, is when we actually shared multiple messages in the sense of they were telling their story, like a unique story that led into actually a brand or a company or some larger story, right? And so that's what we do and infuse with Broadcast Your Authority at this point, is really just infusing that in their messaging for their show, but also being strategic about it with leveraging keywords and like what people are actually searching for. Because anything that's not internal for a corporation can definitely be put out there for, maybe it's like insights, like CMO insights, CFO insights, leadership insights. You could create these mini series and utilize YouTube and Google to optimize these mini series, which then again, we go back to attracting talent, because talent is marketing.
Yeah. And I wanted to go back a little bit So when companies have multiple departments and maybe you have like a Spanish department or a department that speaks like other languages, like there are ways to have the captions in the different languages now. Like we could do it on YouTube. We can do it in the internal podcast. Like it's quite special to be able to translate and everybody can, feel heard and seen. And I love it.
Well, another thing that we've really tapped into in the side of integration with different languages, because there's so many different companies now that have English departments, Spanish departments, even French, even Arabic. We've actually had several people come to us and say, can you create captions in Arabic? And so now we're stepping in and leveraging and posting the content, but have the options added in YouTube so that they can actually have their audience that they might not have just customers or followers here in the US, but they have those other ones, or their departments even over here. We spoke with a gal last month too, so helping her build out the essence of her first language is not English, it's Spanish, right? But she's teaching in Spanish and English. So being able to have that flip switch for the automation and the captions to appear and closed captioning on YouTube makes the most sense to be like, hey, you have the option to put this in Arabic. You have the option to put this in Spanish. You have the option to put this in English. But it's cool to be able to be like, you can do this and people can understand it. So I love that ability too. On a separate note, why, corporations should care about what they're doing, that not just showing, they're telling, right? And the idea is to create this content to put out on YouTube and Google and all these spaces. And what's really important about it is the fact that it has this evergreen ability to build culture and memories, and people can find it over time, right? So like with a lot of different podcasts out there, like it's living out in the internet for years to come, unless you put it unlisted or something like that. But I think that's what's unique about it is, I don't know about you, but when I've done research on big brands and companies and things like that, you'll go to their YouTube channel and they have something from like 10, 11 years ago. And sometimes those are some of the most powerful brand, impact videos, right? Like these commercials, these stories. And the way that you can look at it is do the same thing with these podcasts, because you could utilize, employee stories, team stories for years to come, even if they passed and they went to a new company, but people are seeing the inspiration and the care that they put into this side to help build a culture. But the fact that it's living on the internet for life, unless you remove it, of course, is super impactful though, because when people are doing their due diligence of when they want to work with a company, they can find a resource that really matters to them. So I think it's great for just somebody to understand when they come to a company and feel good about the company they're applying for, right? And so vice versa, like they want people to come in and watch the content and consume the content and show that they care about the overall mission of a company as well.
Yeah, and just to bring up like, because we had this question today, is like, how do you go about like getting the permissions or the consent or being able to use the footage for a while? And what we recommend is the release forms and signing them in advance. It's
very important. So like with us, we send out all of our release forms, like anything that's being recorded from us, like we have the rights to it and but they own the rights to it. So we're not having people go out and like post content with our clients' faces on that without the permission on that side, because it's a liability under our company. You don't want to be recording content and people are pulling things together, without our permission, but also for their impact too, because the company that we talked to even this morning with the meeting, like they have a very sensitive topic about their clients as well, because those specific clients also have to get permission from their parents if they are not of age. So it's very important when you're working with people and getting the content inside that you have those release forms in place if you send them out digitally like we do ahead of time. So everything's set before we actually record with everybody and they're very aware of what you're doing. Because it could come back and bite you in the butt later in life and you don't want that to happen at all. You could do this beautiful work and then all of a sudden somebody comes back and says, remove that video that you did for us, on YouTube. So there's just very strategic ways to do that. And I know big corporations have very much law agreements in place. We have law agreements in place, of course, with our counsel. So it's very important that you think strategically with that side. Be safe with the way that you record content for your podcasting and anybody that does that type of work anyways. So it's just always good to play safe, but it's part of just the action, but also being able to communicate with those people too. It's like, how can we help serve you? Is it best for us to help provide, this release form, or is it better for us to give you this specific template so it goes under your law and attorney factor? So there's so many rules and regulations out there, but I know that majority of corporations at this point have these systems in place. So it is important to do that. But yeah, for your content to be able to live on the internet forever without somebody coming back and saying, hey, strike that, it's really good to have those in place.
Yeah. And with each campaign that we do, we help produce, like we have detailed outlines, like we have the questions already prepared for the guests. And so they understand what this campaign's going to look like, what the questions are going to look like. So they're able to prepare in advance and really just have a feel for what's going to be asked on camera. That always goes a long way.
Yeah, no, it's really important. So obviously some of the content that we do with some of the clientele is more conversational based during certain experiences, but we literally map out, the topics, the questionnaires, especially when we do any of our roundtable experiences throughout the major studios that we've done with, even like SiriusXM and things like that. It's all mapped out for them so they don't feel like awkward coming into a situation. Like it's always good to prepare, but especially with the side of these types of things for the corporations, I think it's good to have a specific structure, strategy, flow, content flow. I mean, you could have the mini series and be like, here's the mini series of leadership lessons, and here's the 6 people that we're going to feature. And this person's going to talk about XYZ. This person's going to talk about XYZ. But of course, that person will most likely help decide what the bullet points that they're going to talk about on as well. So, but it's always a collaborative effort.
Yeah. And this is just some of like ideas for the campaigns, but there's a lot of other campaigns that we do with corporations. And like if you have a bunch of managers running departments, like there's managerial campaigns that we do where they can get all the information out. Because I think like when I was younger, like I worked in corporate, and all the managers had different issues that came up and different problems. And so we all called each other on the phone and we had these conversations like, do you know how to handle this? Do you know how to handle this? Like, this is the situation that I have going on right now. Yeah. And so being able to have a podcast out there that other managers or people in the employees can relate to goes a long way. And it's like super helpful to just like tune in weekly on that.
Well, yeah. And when you do a campaign setting series, like a mini series that goes out like weekly, like an internal series, right? So they can send out that internal series. And yeah, people lead busy lives. They have schedules. They're working, things like that. I think it's important that what's unique about it is the fact that they can come back and replay it later, right? So like, oh man, here's the leadership campaign that came out, leaders mini series. I want to catch each of the episodes coming in through this, talking, like learning a bit more about the leaders in the company. Because you could be working for a Fortune 500 company that has like 500 employees, and they're not going to meet all the leaders in there.
Exactly.
Too. Like they don't have that access point anymore. Most people don't even know. Like sometimes they don't even meet the CEO because it's different things. There's working remote, different things like that, different departments, different locations. Maybe the CEO lives in Washington, D.C. and you're in a department in Seattle. You don't know all of that piece of it, but this is a way to get to know people and send those campaigns out. And so I think it's very important to have these ways to communicate with more of your internal team. So
yeah, you're really building this huge library of content that you can easily sift through to find the content that is most relevant as well.
Well, I enjoyed this conversation. I could talk more on this, but I think we'll wrap up this episode for the day. If this resonated with you, definitely reach out to us at broadcastyourauthority.com. We work with several corporations and we help build out different campaigns as well. And so it's important just to know that you can leverage a podcast in different ways, not just for an outside marketing tool, but your internal marketing tools, your culture building, as well as your recruiting. So again, we appreciate you all, and we'll see you in the next episode.